Joe Hopkins here, and I wanted to do a video. I might do more of these in the future. Albums you need to hear, right? Because sometimes something comes out and it seems like it doesn't really make the big splash it should, and maybe you guys haven't heard about it, right? And today I wanted to do one on Macy Gray, right? I believe it's her 9th studio album. It's called Stripped. Now, I've been a Macy Gray fan since her first album. Honestly, I really, really like Macy Gray. But for some reason, like, this slipped under my radar, right? I think partly because it didn't hit the pop charts. Maybe it did, I don't know. But it certainly didn't start out there, and that's not where it really made a splash. She did a jazz album. It's called Stripped. Now, it did hit the jazz charts, and for some reason, I just didn't hear of it when it came out in 2016. But in the last couple months here, my wife discovered it and started playing it, and I listened to it. I'm like, well, that's Macy Gray doing jazz, right? My wife found, she did a cover of Bob Marley's song, Redemption Songs. And it blew my mind. So I've been listening to more of it. She did a cover of Metallica, Nothing Else Matters, jazz style. And for you metalheads out there, it's worth listening to, right? Because it's a song you'd recognize, but it's done jazz. And it's not done, like a lot of times when people do jazz albums, it's a little like, not the best, right? It's a little cheesy, it's jazz-ish. But this is a serious jazz album. This sounds like something that would have come out in like 1958, 1961, around there. She recorded it apparently in 2 sessions, in a 2-day period in April of 2016. And then it came out in August. And she recorded it with what sounds like, I'm listening to it, sounds like a jazz quartet. I hear drums. Really, really excellent drums. The drummers, all the musicians, all 4 of them are amazing. But drums, bass, like traditional stand-up bass, guitar, and trumpet. And the trumpet player is absolutely phenomenal, man. I get the impression this guy listened to a lot of Miles Davis, right? And probably read... what's it called? The Lydian Chromatic Concept. Or at least studied artists like Miles Davis who had read that book and taken it rather seriously, who had studied it. And it's done really, really right. It's really, really good. If you guys listen to the album, I'd recommend the song Lucy. And I would play some of it for you, but YouTube gets edgy if you play stuff, you know what I mean, like copyright. And I don't want a copyright claim. But that's all right. You guys should listen to the album. You should take my word for it that it's worth checking out. It is one of the best jazz albums I've heard in a very long time. I like jazz. I listen to a lot of jazz stuff, but there's a lot of the newer progressive type jazz I'm not really that into. I really like that early modal jazz and the stuff that came before it, like the bebop and hard bop and that kind of stuff. For some reason, I don't like it as it got more progressive and went further afield. I get the experimental concept of it, but the album Macy Gray did, that album Stripped, is exactly the kind of early modal jazz sound that I love. And it's done really, really well. And I wanted to talk about it with you guys to just say, hey, here's something would be worth checking out, right? Because I don't think a lot of people have heard of it outside of people that are into jazz or are Macy Gray fans. And I'm into jazz and a Macy Gray fan, and somehow it still slipped under my radar until 6 years later. It came out 6 years ago. But hearing it now, I gotta say, this is an album worth checking out. It's an album worth checking out because from a musical standpoint, it's amazing. And it really, really is. It's an album worth checking out because it's sonically interesting, because it is very well put together. And I think that's part of why I don't like a lot of the like more progressive jazz is it loses the song a lot of times. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense to somebody that isn't a musician and isn't into that kind of thing. But this album does. It makes sense. You can listen to it as a song that's just very well put together and very jazzy. You know what I mean? It's worth listening to. It's worth recommending. And that's why I'm recommending it. That's why you guys should listen to it. It's also worth listening to from a musical standpoint if you're a musician, to kind of listen to and start picking things apart. The rhythms are very good. Excellent drummer. The rhythm section is just so good. If you're a guitarist, learning some of the chords that the guitarist on this is playing, he's going through the chords, right? Taking what would kind of traditionally be the piano part, which is standard jazz guitar stuff. You take the piano chord parts and just play them. And it's really good. It would be good to learn some of these chords. It'd be good to pick it apart and try to emulate this to some degree in whatever you're doing. And I plan on doing that to a degree with what I do. I can't do what they're doing. I could if I learned it and practiced it and really studied that end of music. But I don't have the time to do that. But I can take bits and pieces, take some of the concepts and ideas and kind of work them into what I do. And you can do that too. In the very least, it's an amazingly interesting piece of work to listen to. The song I'd recommend first is called Lucy. And yeah, she's singing about her private parts and sex. But it's just such a good song, right? And apparently it was something they just put together on the spot. I was reading the Wikipedia thing on it. If that's right, it was just kind of improvised, which is always good. I love it. I love to hear musicians improvise. And the whole thing was, to a degree, improvised. And you can hear it. You can tell. And it's, you know, the whole album is improvisational. And it's another reason to listen to it. It's inspiring to hear musicians like this and a singer like Macy Gray at the top of their game do their thing in the highest level. The most professional musicians doing things at the highest level possible. It's their A game, and it's a joy as a musician to hear that. So that's my recommendation. If any of you guys know some albums that maybe don't top the charts, maybe are a little obscure, that I should listen to and maybe talk about, man, leave it in the comments below, because I'd love to hear about some of that stuff, man. I love finding new music and new things, and it's always a joy, you know, especially if it's good stuff. Or even if it's not good stuff, man. There's some terrible albums that are just interesting. They're so interesting. Anyway, thought I'd talk about that with you guys. At the end of the video here, there's a little end screen thing, and I got a couple playlists and a subscribe button. You should subscribe to my channel and check out some playlists, man. If you are a musician, I have a reviews playlist where I review various budget instruments, stuff you can afford. And it's not just guitars. Go through there, take a look. And, you know, I got a songs playlist if you want to hear some of my songs, talking about obscure musicians right here, man. I'm about as obscure as it gets. But I think I do good stuff. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, love you guys. Peace out, baby. Bye-bye.